Okay, awesome. Thanks everyone for coming in. It's really good to have you all today with us. So I'm accompanied by Shubham, and I'll just quickly go over a basic introduction. So my name's Mayank Grover. I'm the founder of Outscal, and I've been in the technology space for more than 10 years now, both in India and US, and have been working with a lot of tech companies, a lot of big name projects, and especially a lot of major work has been in the gaming space, so game development space specifically. And generally, there are a lot of misconceptions around what the gaming industry is, how does the work happen there, how technically challenging is it? Is it same as working in big companies like Google, Facebook, and whatnot, right? So feel free to ask any such questions, etc. as well. Happy to answer those as well for any folks who are interested in joining the industry. Um, so I've worked on some big companies like EA and Kixeye and DNA in US, and games and companies like Jungly Games in India, and also I've worked in almost every part of the world, from Dubai to Hong Kong, etc., and just across the board worked with a bunch of game companies. So at Outscale, we are focused in uh, teaching people how to sort of work professionally, how to learn professional skills, and actually at the end of the day get jobs. So predominantly we focus on game development as a career track, and we teach students all the way from zero to industry ready skill set. And anybody coming in does not need any prior coding knowledge. We start from all the basics of C++, data structures, Unity, and also multiplayer gaming, focusing on technologies like Node.js for building backends and in JavaScript, basically. So our main program is 6 months long, but it takes you from zero all the way to getting a job in the game industry. And the best part is that we have a system in place where students don't have to worry about the cost of the program till they get a job. They pay us back a future part of their income back to us. So it's applicable for people who are willing to take up a job immediately after they graduate. So that's a little bit about Outscale. Today's session is giving you guys a little bit introduction about how you can sharpen your coding skills, how you can get started with your first programming language, C++, in this case, and how can you sort of go about building fun game projects without having to worry too much, or create something fun along the way you learn new things, right? So building games has is what I used to like to call it, is the gateway drug. So gateway drug to coding, basically. And to sharpen your coding skills, building fun game projects, whichever language you want to build it in, right? It's always one of the best ways that you can start to love coding, right? And love problem solving. So that's usually how we kind of go about these things. So today what we'll be doing is, so I have Shubham with me. So Shubham is our game development expert in Outscale, and he focuses heavily on a lot of the gaming related content and the coding material, all the stuff that students go through, and sort of the entire experience of the program that students engage with. So Shubham sort of oversees that entire process, and engages with all the students in terms of what difficulty they might be facing, how to go about preparing for tier one companies like Rockstar and Ubisoft and EA and whatnot, right? So what digital. Shubham and I will be tag teaming on the session today, getting you started with your programming language. So in order to make most of today's session, what I'll recommend is that you guys also have a laptop or a desktop open with you, preferably. If not, you can do it on the mobile as well, so that you can code along, or at least follow along the instructions and start to code a few things by yourself as well. Okay, so that would be a fun way of going about today's session. All right. Um, give me one second. Shivam, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, sir. So this is Shubham from Outscal. I'm majorly a student. Like I'm also, learning things right now. Yes, I am uh, the go-to guy for Unity majorly, but still I'm learning many things, making projects and learning stuff. So that's it
Right.
from my side. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a very good point, right? Like even I say that I'm close to 11 years experience, but I'm learning new shit every day, right? So in order to succeed in today's day and age, it's always good to have that mindset that we have to learn and grow every step of the way, right? So the learning never stops, kind of. Cool. So let's kind of dive in. So Shubham, if you can go ahead, share your screen, and we'll start with the sort of a basic introduction, getting started with C++. And for everybody else who's going to be following along, you can ask whatever relevant questions you might have. You can just put them down in the chat. If they're relevant to something that we are just now discussing, I'll take them immediately. But if they are more towards, say, career direction or anything broadly, feel free to put them in the chat, not a problem. And I will pick them up once we finish the coding part, right? And we'll have a 10-15 minutes at the end towards a general Q&A from career opportunities, from other aspects as well. All right. Cool. Shivam, you want to start?
Sure, sir. I'll just share my screen. Give me a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yes. So majorly, first of all, first step is to, open REPL. So I'll be just, sharing the link, stopping the share for a sec and sharing the link in your chat. So just click on this one and you could, jump into REPL. So what REPL essentially is a platform, online platform where you can, code. So when you open it up, first time it, looks like this. So if I, just run it, so voila, my hello world is done. So I have done one code, victory. So
So,
yes, sir.
so so you repel this new website that you just mentioned, like, is this just C++ only?
There are actually many more languages you can pick. I think you can change the language. Okay, once you are selected, you can't pick change the language. But once you open the REPL for the first time, you can select any language you want. Every new REPL could have n number of language. Let me show you. It's better
Hmm.
shown than said. So just start coding and then wait for a sec. These many languages they have, right? So
Mm.
majorly just search the language you want to use, then create a repair. So wait for a second, and they are just loading up stuff.
Awesome.
So now you have the hello world already there. So you just have to run, and you are done with the
Hmm.
first thing every developer does.
Yeah. No, I think
Yes.
this is great. So for everyone, we heavily rely on Repel internally for all the assignments that we do for data structures algorithm portion of our program as well. And this gives you a good place where you don't have to worry about installing software. You can log into your same application, or rather same account. Here, I think Shivam, you're not signed in. You haven't actually created an account, but if you guys create an account on this website, it's completely free, right? So you can log into other places as well. And there are other websites as well. So feel free to use anything else if you guys are comfortable using something else. But this is the one that we have found very helpful, especially for while you're doing anything on the fly. So yeah, good. Let's continue.
Okay, sure. So if you see the code which is already written here, so you could see there is a main function. So like in C++, everything, all the code that is executed in this main function mainly. So this is the first function that is called, right? So in it you write all of your code. The first line, if you see, is std, then there is two colons, then cout. So let's just forget about the std for now. Then cout is actually the print command, like print function here. So majorly you could use it to print things in your console. So if I want to change anything, like I have written here, hello guys, welcome to Outscal. So you can write anything you want to, like Like just imagine Big Bang Theory, Big Bang Theory, right? So it would print Big Bang Theory. So you could do anything. And now we come back to this STD later on. It's actually a bit advanced. So for now, I'm just writing one thing, which will help me, not again and again write std. So actually std is some kind of file which has cout, which knows what this function cout is, right?
Hmm.
So that is why we are writing this std. Then this double colon is scope resolution. Okay. So majorly std knows where cout stays. So if we are telling, okay, from std bring cout, now I have written using namespace std. I don't need this. So that is one thing you all should do. It makes your life a bit more easier and your code a bit beautiful.
So anything I write after C out, basically I'll be able to see on the screen when I run my program.
Yes, majorly you would be if you have this operator uh, put in through.
So if I just copy paste this, it'll run for me as well, right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, okay, cool. So what
Okay.
what is this main thing? You mentioned something that it's something in the beginning, right? So could you just repeat that part? What is this main thing doing actually?
Okay, computer is really stupid, right? It doesn't know where to start or end.
Hmm.
So whenever you run, just when I click run, so it first goes to main. Okay, so it goes to main, and it is the actually the starting point of the this code actually.
Okay.
So it runs this cout after
Hmm.
that. So essentially, it would going through, like, first line is cout. If I again write cout, hello guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again if I run it, so you can see first it printed Big Bang Theory, then hello guys. So it means when first it goes to main, then the fifth line is executed, then the sixth, right? So essentially that's the flow. That is one really important thing you guys should know. It will help you in future, right?
Hmm. Okay. So we have one question. Rishi is asking, is this basically an interpreter? Rishi, I'm guessing you're talking about the Repel website. If that is the case, then the answer is no. It's basically giving you a full-fledged virtual desktop environment where you can write your code and run your code, right? And and like we saw in the beginning, Shivam showed us that there are a lot of these options for programming languages and environment, so you can build even like complicated projects on technologies like React and Vue and Node.js, etc. as well. So you can select anything from the list that Repel supports, and that way it basically allows you to run your code without having to install software locally. And the best part is, then, like Shubham shared the URL with you guys in the beginning, when you write your own code, you basically can share the URL to somebody else, and your entire program gets shared, right? So it allows easy sharing of code between people, especially when you want to work with friends on a project or showcase something, right? Um, Pragati is asking what is meant by scope resolution. Okay, scope resolution, I think Shubham mentioned it, but let's keep it for now on hold. The reason is it will be difficult to explain it without going into a lot more details before. So for now, just understand that's the syntax that we want to use. Anytime we want to put anything on the screen, we'll just write the cout things. But as we start to understand deeper and deeper how the language works, we'll start to understand these concepts as well. Um,
Okay, you can actually understand scope resolution in something like just imagine if an Amazon guy, comes to deliver something to you, right?
hmm,
So he need to, resolve where you stay. So STD majorly resolves where the cout is. So that's actually some kind of,
correct.
place cout is kept. It's another place. It's actually another namespace
Hmm,
in which it is kept. So essentially STD, finds out where this address is or where cout is, and then,
yeah.
prints it.
in,
Majorly that's
in some
layman
sense,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. So Shivam, you're right there. So in some sense, it's telling that, okay, if you write cout, what is the program supposed to do? What is C++ supposed to convert this into what is it, like how does it know ki see out means put this logic and show it on the screen, right? So that logic is written somewhere else inside the C in the language itself, right? So in some other script file, etc. So it's all it's doing is it's trying to find where that logic is in sort of a very simplistic terms, right? So that gives you a basic idea about scope resolution. In that address language syntax that Shubham mentioned, it's like, okay, if I want to pinpoint where your address is, first I'll narrow it down to the city, then to the zone, then to something else, etc., etc. So that's how scope resolution. It's trying to resolve the scope as to which locality you are in, which house number you are in, etc. Right? So narrowing the scope down from highest level to the lowest level. Think about it like that. Repel allow graphic. Rohit, I'm not sure what exactly you mean. Repel allow graphic. If you mean like you can draw things, yes. So recent versions of Repel actually allow you to do some of GUI programming where you can actually have graphics, etc. So that's correct. Compiler know the meaning of cout and cin. So compiler knows, but not really, right? Compiler knows based on what you tell it, right? So compiler says that, okay, you're saying that cout is somewhere in this std. So I'm going to look inside std what cout really means, and then come back and say, okay, cout really means this, right? So that's it. Cool. So Shum, can you explain what wizardry are you doing?
Okay, cool. So essentially, like for the STD problem, there is one thing that came up in my mind. I'll just delete this line and try to run this code, right? Now, if you read this error, it doesn't know where cout is. It is telling use this. It's actually kept somewhere else, right? So that is one reason I have put up namespace std. So many a times, errors tell you a lot more about, you need to know. Many a times they teach you a lot. So have a look at these errors. Make sure you are Googling them, and it will help you out. So that's one thing. The second thing is the question: do you know what this do? Can any one of you, think about it and write in the chat like \n? What does it do? Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll print a statement without \n, and after that I'll print one with the \n. So first iteration is without \n. Okay, so this is without \n. Now if I put a \n, so now if you see the output, it's a little bit different. Can you tell me, like, why is it like,
yeah,
what is
looks like we are getting a lot of chat responses. Next line takes you to the next line, moves to the next line. So I think majority folks are end line, next line. Okay, yeah. So looks like majority folks are familiar with, or at least have grasped what's happening looking at the output.
Yeah, essentially that is what happens. So that's awesome. Cool. You guys know. Okay, good.
But I think if somebody is not familiar, can you just quickly summarize what this next line thing does actually?
Okay, sure. It's actually simple enter. When you are writing something in the notepad, when you tap on enter, it moves on to the next line. So that is it. If you see here, it says, do you know the meaning of? Then one line, like next line, that is the first slash in. Then after this next line, again I wrote slash in. So it moves on to the next line and prints the things after it. What is after it? Is essentially my two question marks and this like colon, like my face. Cool.
Cool. Awesome. So any specific, this is a question for everybody. Anybody know why there is a slash n? Like why do we write it as a slash n? Why not, you know, I say so the word space, right? Like I literally type it out as, the word space or the string space. Escape sequence. Okay, but what do we mean? Like why do we have to do slash n? You guys are telling us the technical term that okay, it's escape character, but what does it mean? Like, why do we need slash n? Can I just directly write space or put something like, something else? The compiler can recognize. Okay, so somebody mentioned that that is just the syntax, right? But okay, so always try to argue why is the syntax the way it is, right? So why is the language? Because you can think of it as language, the C++ language, or for that matter, any programming language is written by other computer science engineers, right? Computer scientists, right? Like these are the guys who are designing the language. You're consuming the language, right? So every time you have to do something, question why are we doing it like this? Like what is the reason? Because if a bunch of smart people sat to create the language, they could have done something smart about it, right? Like there could have been a valid reason to come up with that, right? So that's usually always try to understand what is the reasoning behind it, what is the thought process, why did they ever come up with that approach, right? So that is something that you need to think about. Most of the answers that I saw in the chat, especially around like escape sequence, escape character, special character, all that stuff, that's just what the terminology is. How do you I say what is slash n, right? If anybody is familiar here, maybe Shubham, you can show an example versus slash n versus slash t. It's just basically about, okay, slash n is for next line, slash t is for next tab, space, etc., right? But why is it supposed to be slash, right? Why not hash n? Why not question mark n, right? Or why not something else n, right? Or so always question why the language has been done in a way it has been done, right? Like we assume that, okay, it's great that it runs the way it runs, and we just go about our business thinking, okay, this is how it's supposed to be, right? So always try to question this. Um, it is a pointer. It is a pointer to a character array. Okay. Special meaning, tell to a compiler about slash n. Okay, so it has some special meaning. Sure, we understand that. It is slash n meaning is written in background. Okay, so I think there are some different examples, or rather answers. It is a pointer. Okay. I mean, I have nothing to mention in terms of pointers. We're very much in class one, so compiler can't recognize spaces, so slash is special and character. Okay, so seems like there are a bunch of different answers, but I think this is something I'll leave you guys to research on your own as to, is there a specific reason why the language decided to use backslash instead of something else, right? I could have very well written as hash n as well, right? Or I could have written as open curly brackets or something. Like, I mean, if I had to use a symbol, I could use any fucking symbol, right? Like, why just specifically this symbol, right? And what is the real meaning? So keep questioning the assumptions that you think the world says, okay, this is the assumption, just do this assumption, right? But keep questioning it. There is a question, Shivam, why did slash didn't get printed in the output? I think I was looking at the chat, I missed what was in the output.
He's asking this case. Like if it's in string, why didn't it get printed? So essentially the answer lies why you are using slash in majorly, because
Hmm.
slash is that, special bit.
Okay. Cool, awesome. So I'll leave that for you guys to come up and research a little bit, and that's usually how when we do learning, we always question like this, like do not just take assumptions on what the people tell you that this is how you're supposed to write it, right? Always question the fuck out of it, is why this, why that, right? Like there has to be a reason, right? So you need to understand those reasons, right? So uh, why is acha, C++?
This is how you research. Okay. So you can go to Stack Overflow. Quora isn't a good place to go
Yeah,
majorly. So you could, research and, give it
Correct.
time and
So,
understand things.
so Rishi is saying, please answer because this has generated curiosity. Rishi, that was my purpose. My job here is a good teacher's job always is to generate curiosity for you guys to, satisfy that curiosity, right? So, uh, I'll always pose questions. All the mentors within Outscale their job is to pose questions to you guys so that you can figure out the answers, right? And learn and grow as well.
Okay.
So
Essentially, the philosophy here is if you, learn things your own self, you learn it for your life, entire life, you remember that one thing. But if you, just give it to you, in a silver golden platter, you won't remember the thing,
yeah.
right? You won't, really learn. It's actually borrowed, not earned. So there is a difference. So we'll, go into it later. It's actually really philosophical.
But yeah,
So,
cool. So yeah, I think let's come back to C++. Yeah.
okay, good. So essentially now we guys know how to print things. Okay. So next up, we'll create some variables. I think, like, just imagine I created a variable, say int a. So first of all, what variables are, right? So variables majorly, hold up some data. So what is data? Say I created a variable a that is an integer. Let me name it better. A is really bad, So I'll name it as number. Okay. So integer means that this variable, which is called number, right? Will contain some kind of number. Essentially integer is number, right? So not a floating point, not a decimal. For decimal we have some other data type, right? So essentially integer is just for numbers. Okay, so just imagine I put 2 here, and now if I print number, so can you guys guess for what will it print? Any guesses?
Or line number 7.
Yes, line number 7.
Hmm. Okay. So we have the string number. Okay. Okay. So we have some people who are saying 2, and some people that are saying uh, the string number basically.
Okay, let's run it and we'll know. So, okay, so it prints number.
Hmm.
Why? Because yes, we have created a variable, right? But if you, see it carefully, it's enclosed in quotes, double quotes, right? So it's actually not the number we are printing. It's actually a string. Majorly, let me just print anything. If I print anything in it, right? Literally, I'm printing anything. So it would print anything. So just write any damn thing in between the quotes, and it will print it exactly like that. Okay. So if I want to print the number, so I'll print it like this, number.
So
Yeah.
without the quotes.
Without the quotes, it prints 2.
Hmm.
So let's change it to 3. So now it will again print 3, right? So it's majorly a container. So you don't have to, bust your head around variables. It's pretty easy concept. So it's just think it of as a container to, hold some data, anything. What you saw essentially, if I write a string, give me a sec. Oh, sorry, character. That's character. So if I print it again, what do you guys think? What will it print?
Okay. So somebody saying 3.
Let's
Somebody
print it.
a sky of 3.
Okay, it didn't print anything.
Hmm.
Reason? Because if it's a character, it should be in single quotes or double quotes. Okay. So let's again, print it. Now it's printing 3. Now it's not a number anymore, right? Because it's in quotes. It's actually in the variable number, but the type is character. Okay. So if I try to add anything to it, okay. Just imagine I add 3 to it. So what do you think is will be the output?
Hmm. Error 3 plus 3. 33.
Let's try it and see. Cool. So why is it 54? So
Yes.
essentially there is a good reason to it. Um, Majorly if you think, so this character is 3. Okay, so it's apparently converting it uh, into like I think I need to see the ASCII table for this.
I mean, it should be basically,
It's
essentially, what we are doing is anything that is in single quotes is a character, right? So each character internally is represented as a number, and this representation is called ASCII. Okay, so what Shubham is opening up is basically a table, right? And we'll see that every A, B, C, 0, 1, 2, 3, all that, right? Like they have a character representation. Like a character is internally represented as a number only, right? So when you do, so if you can, okay, let's just look at
see the like see the representation for 3. It's actually 51, guys. Okay. So if we see 51 decimal, so 51 plus 3, what is it? 54, right? So that is what it's doing. So I didn't plan to do that, but it did that, so it's great. Why it did that is because I didn't put this. What I intended to do was essentially not this. Again, so
So now it
again,
is okay. Okay, I think this is a good question for everybody. If you just open up code back again. So we saw the previous. Shum, can you add the cout statement that we saw before this? Number plus 3. Can you just create a duplicate copy of it? Yeah. So just create 2 different copies of the same cout statement, one with the number 3 and one with the character 3.
so I use Control C, Control V. Okay, guys, that's a really good tool in your arsenal. Continue using it.
Probably just add some C in. So we saw that line 7 gave out number 54 as the answer, right? Um,
Okay, I need to also add one more thing.
just add
Give me a second.
the,
Backslash.
yeah, I think you might have to do the C out,
Okay,
yeah,
cascading majorly.
correct, correct. So yeah.
This is actually known as cascading. I think, if I remember the term right, you could print 2 things in a row.
So now can somebody explain why the second line is giving a 102 as the output? Line number 8, the output is 102. Anyone?
Cool.
So remember, number, the variable number represents 3, the character 3. And we are adding another character to it inside cout. So now y is basically that. And we know that character 3 internally represents 51, right? Got it. So I think some of you guys got the answer. Why is it 102? Is because it is taking the number, the variable number, because it's 3, it's turning it into its ASCII equivalent, which is 51. And the Shubham, can you move the mouse? The pop-up, yeah. So on line number 8, the other one is also 3, which is also getting converted into 51. And then it adds the 251 ups and then comes with the answer 102, right? So now the question to you guys is, if I really want to see 33 in the output, how would I do it what change do I need to do to line number 8 if I really want to see 33 in the output? Right? But I want to use the number. I want to use that variable called number, right? So I want to essentially modify line number 7. Use double quotes. I mean, if you can just write the cout statement full, right? Like, so in the chat, just write the full cout statement. How would I go about modifying it so that I can actually see 33 in the output using the number that we have defined there in line number 5, right? So using the variable number, how will I see 33?
You have the answer right before your eyes.
Okay, so I think some people started with a little bit high fundu concepts like typecasting and all.
This is how you do. It's so simple.
Okay, I think you gave away the answer. So yeah, so sometimes the answer is actually much simpler. So for people who might be familiar with a little bit of C++, right? Like, sure, you could have come up with a fancier version of the answer, but sometimes the answer is much simpler than that, right? So the lesson here is that you need to understand the question and then come up with the answer. Don't jump the gun. So the question was simple, that I just need to modify one statement, use the variable number defined on line number 5, and come up with the way to print 33 onto the screen, right? So the answer was much simpler than what you guys thought initially, right? So the answer is always correct in the given context, right? If I change the question, if I tell you the question is, you can use the variable number, but only once, then line number 8 is not the solution, right? So then the solution will be something else, and you can think about it. But my question did not specify that you cannot anything regarding duplication, right? So you could just do this n number of times, and you could even write 3 3 3 3 3 3 3 using the same thing. I'm not saying it's a very good code or a very nice looking fancy code, but it is the right solution, right? So that's how you want to think about whenever you're trying to solve a problem. Typecasting and all, sure, but think fundamentals, right? Like, what is the fundamental thing that is being asked?
Actually, the best programmers are the laziest one. You will eventually know why. When you study functions, you'll be like, oh, they're always using the same shit again, 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 over and over again. Why do you think a for loop was created? Like, for the ones who know for loop, for them, but eventually you'll get to know.
Yep. Cool. So yeah, let's continue.
Okay. So now we have learned like what I was saying. I just lost my line of track. Sorry. Okay. So now we have learned what variables are. Now we know how to see out things. So essentially, I think so. We are almost ready to go into the next step. That is an if statement. So if statement is a really simple statement. Like just imagine. Okay. Let me do something really fast. Okay. So can you guys tell me what will this if statement print? I'll tell you what if statement is, but first you should tell me. Like, try to think. What can it print?
Okay. So majority people are saying this will print hello if true. There are so someone asking, why do we need an if statement?
I'll tell you guys.
Hello if to infinite times.
Okay, let's just try to run it. Okay, it prints hello if true. Okay, so essentially what happens, it goes to the ninth statement. It checks if after if it's true, right? If it's getting true, it will go inside this block. Okay, this block, like these two curly braces, and execute cout hello if true. Okay, if I write an else, like just imagine if inside this statement was not true. Okay, if it's false, so now what will happen? We'll just go slowly for now. So it prints by false. Okay, so this whole structure depends on this value, if it's true or if it's false. If it were true, again let's see, if it were true, it printed hello if true, right? If it's false, it prints by false. Okay, so just imagine like there is a variable for that which we call which has a beautiful name bool, essentially, which is a true or false. So just imagine I gave it a name night. Okay, is equal to false. Okay guys, so now uh, if it's night, if it's true, then we sleep. Okay, if it's false, then we don't sleep.
Go to work.
Sleep. Yes, maybe go to work. Like, depending on if it's Sunday or not. So essentially, I write night here. Okay. So I wrote night here. Okay. So if I run this, so don't sleep because night is false, right? So essentially, one more thing that would help you in the future, like almost all the languages have bool in it. Okay, so whenever naming bool, just write is night. So it's something you should do, like naming convention. It's good to name it like this. So it tells much more. Is night if it's false. So I say night is false. Okay. So I again run. It would be same. I just change the name of the variable. So if I make it true here, so again run it. So it runs sleep. So someone asked me why we are using these statements. So what can I do here is I could
I think there are a couple of questions regarding what is exactly bool, and then initially we were doing the true false thing. So our true false thing, is this like a predefined? Can you just talk about so what is bool basically?
Okay, cool. So Boolean is just a variable which could have either two values, true or false. As we know, computer is actually based on 1 or 0, which is on or off. So this is actually true or false. So you could think of true as 1 and false as 0.
Correct.
That's it. Done.
So
like true is, yes,
it's a different type of a data type, very much how we saw integer before and we wrote it as int, how we saw char before and we wrote it as a character as char, right? So it's basically a true type. The only limitation is you can only store true or false in it. You cannot store anything else. That's it.
If you have any more questions, you can throw it our way. Otherwise, we'll move forward.
The other question was this true thing that you have right now highlighted. Is this a keyword?
Yes, it's a keyword. Okay, essentially, I forgot to tell you about keywords. Good question. So keywords are actually, reserved words that you can't use. If here, suppose I write a char number, okay, if I again write char, it would give me error because, it's already defined in the language. You can't, use keyword names as, what do you say? Variable names. So never do that. That's like many people many a times start when they are
compiler
starting
won't let you do that as well, right? So
yes,
even if you did, then the program will immediately fail. So you
so
know.
true is such a keyword. That's it. So whenever you are doing anything, you are building some code or anything, just don't think I need to learn 100% of the language. You can never learn it. Just learn the part you need to implement in your project or anything. So that's it.
Hmm.
So can you tell me what would be the output of this one now? Anyone?
So people are saying sleep.
Okay, because 10 is greater than 2. So here we have a true inside it. So essentially, yes, it would be sleep. Okay, cool. If I just reverse the sign, what it would be now?
Yep. So yeah, a
Don't
couple of
sleep.
answers saying don't sleep. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now you have learned if, variables, and cout. So I think you are ready to go with the next step, which is like what is algorithm, and now we said we would be building a game, rock paper scissors. So I think mine would take over from here and tell you about the algorithm. Then
Hmm.
you will again come to me for the code part, I think.
Awesome. All right. Good. So I'm just gonna stop the screen share and jump here. Okay. So essentially today we wanted to talk a little bit about how to think about creating solutions to pretty much any problem, right? Like at the end of the day, the reason why we are learning programming is because we want to solve problems, right? These problems can be something that exists in the real world or the digital world, could be anything, right? But we are writing code to achieve something, right? And the way to do that is to come up with algorithms, right? So algorithms necessarily, right? They seem complex, and you guys might get scared that, oh, algorithm seems like some complex shit. But even what we wrote now, right? So what we wrote now was something as straightforward as saying, is night, I'm just writing for short, is night, if, you know, is night is true, then sleep, else, don't sleep, right? Something like that, right? This is an actual algorithm, right? Right now it might seem like it's just useless piece of code, it's not really doing anything. But if this actually is part of a full-fledged game, right, this can be part of the entire AI that controls the behavior of any character, an AI driven character inside the game, right? So I'm sure if you guys have played any games, like GTA or anything, where you might see people walking around the world, etc., right? This might be one small part of an algorithm that determines, do they go up and go outside the house, or do they go back to sleep, etc., etc., right? So city building games and things like that, you can imagine this being part of that, right? So essentially this is what an algorithm is, right? Like certain piece of logic that defines what you're supposed to achieve, right? Like it can be in the physical world or it can be in the digital world. So today we want to talk about rock paper scissors, right? So hopefully everyone is more or less familiar with what rock paper scissors the logic is, right? When I say logic, I mean just if you and me right now started playing, you'll be able to tell who won, right? Every hand, right? So generally that's the logic that you think of in the real world. Now how does this kind of translate into coding, right? That is what we want to figure out. So just so that everybody's on the same page, right? So what happens if one person chooses rock and the other person chooses paper? Who won? Who wins? And you can just reply by R, P, and S. Just that is enough. So if I have these two pairs, player one choosing rock, player two choosing paper, which one wins? Okay. Okay. So I have bunch of bunch of answers in the chat saying paper will win, right? And same if these two form a pair between paper and scissors, you know, scissors will win, right? And then when scissors and rock form a pair, the rock will win, right? So now in this sense, the game is balanced, right? If you think about it, that in every pair, there is at least one way for a person to win, right? So this is going slightly into the topic of game design and all. But imagine if there was a scenario where only paper and scissors would win. There was never a scenario where rock would win, right? If you knew the rules of the game, that rock would never win. Would you ever pick rock? No, right? So as you can see, just by quickly drawing a graphical representation, I know that in this case, paper will win. Between paper and scissors, scissors will win, and between scissors and rock, rock will win, right? So there is a winning scenario for all of them, right? So now all I'm thinking about is that how am I gonna turn this into my actual code logic, right? Before I actually think about C++ code, or you can think about Java code, Python code, whichever language you think about it, current step is only about A, figuring out what the problem is, and B, turning it into a logic, right? And this is how you actually approach any interview problem as well, right? So there are certain steps that you need to take, right? So step one is basically understand the problem. Okay, so what is the problem asking you to do? You need to first understand that. Okay, second step is basically coming up with the logic of it. Okay, so what is the actual logic behind this problem? You need to figure that out. Okay, step three is turning it into an algorithm. Okay, and step four is basically turning that algorithm into working code. Okay, this is exactly the recipe that you're going to use for any job interview. Whenever an interview presents you the problem, majority time where engineers fail, and you would not believe that I have, hired engineers with 6 7 years experience and senior as well. They directly try to jump into this, where presented a problem, they directly jump into writing code. And the moment you do that, you're more or less already failed. Okay, because A, you never tried to understand what the problem is asking. You never logically looked at the problem to understand what is the solution that potentially you can come up with, turn that into a working algorithm, and then go to turning it into code. If you follow these 4-step process, I can guarantee you that you will be able to solve any interview problem. Whether within the first shot you'll be able to come up with working copy of code or not, that's a different issue, but you will be able to properly approach every solution, okay, every problem that gets presented to you. All right, so the problem presented to us today is that we want to implement rock, paper, scissors. So the rules of the logic is simple, that first we need to understand what the problem is. So everybody who knows what rock, paper, scissors is already understands the problem statement, which is that how to play rock, paper, scissors. Right now we're saying we're going to write code about it, but first thing is that you should know how to play it in the physical world before you can actually turn it into code, right? What we did here was actually derive the logic of it. So we did step 2 here, right? So we looked at steps. Okay, if I take pair of this and this guy will win, right? If I take a pair of this and this. So you're trying to run through all the possible scenarios and figure out, okay, what is happening here in the system? What is the logic behind it, right? So now the logic that I'm going to turn this into is saying that every time I run the game, I have 2 players, right? Each player has their own choice. C represents their choice. This is 2 players, okay? Each say C1 and C2. So now both the players have their individual choices, and based on what they have chosen, I'll declare a winner, right? Each player can only choose one choice, right? So that's my high level logic, which will let me put anything into the game and out comes my result. Okay, so I can put any input into this game and out comes my result as long as my logic is working correctly. Got it? So that is how you want to think about approaching any problem. So now we have understood the logic. The logic here is that, okay, you take 2 players, each player gets one choice, they pick a choice. Based on their choices, we do something to figure out that if this player has chosen, option 1, this player has chosen option 2, then this guy is the winner, right? So we'll write that thing. So now turning it into algorithm is where the magic happens, right? Like algorithm is something that sits between logic and code. It is not exactly code. It is not just logic like we discussed here in a diagrammatic form, but we are now turning it into something that is more human readable, right? So the algorithm step part, right? That basically will tell you about how do I make this closer to my eventual code, right? So what is the algorithm here? So the algorithm here is simple. You take player one. We know that first we have to take two choices, right? So first thing I need to do is input player one choice, input player two choice, right? So once I've understood those, after that, I'm gonna turn this into a bunch of conditions. So we just saw if else conditions, etc., right? So my algorithm is gonna try and do a comparison of this. So I'll compare, P1 with P2. When I do this comparison, right? After that, based on the result of these comparisons, that's where I'll know who the winner is. Okay. So now we have taken two inputs, we have run them through a basic logic that says compare, and then turn them into a give out the winner basically, right? So that's how my algorithm works. Okay. So we haven't really talked about what this compare thing does. We have just put one high level thing that says compare, right? So we need to figure out as to what this comparison logic is, right? Like what is the algorithm behind compare? So does anyone have any idea as to what this compare would look like? Or rather, what is the algorithm behind this comparison logic? Anyone? Mm, okay, so seems like there's some discussion. So this is here. Comparative programming, hackrank, because okay, okay. So Naveen is saying that we can use something like a if else statement. Okay, so when you think about if else statement, you're trying to go to this part, which is step 4, right? Right now we're talking about still the algorithm, right? So all we are trying to say is that we'll make pairs and say P1, sorry, yeah, I mean, here we are calling it P1. So we'll just say P1, if P1 is R, right? Rock basically. And P2 is say paper, right? In that case, my winner would be, this is rock, this is paper, so P2 is my winner, right? And now similarly, we'll try to list down all the scenarios. If P1 is paper and P2 is scissors, right? So in this case, my winner is P2, right? If P1 is scissors and P2 is rock, then my winner is P2. Yeah. So what I've done is I've just written what would be the algorithm inside this compare logic. Like when I say compare between P1 and P2, right? Then this is basically the logic that I want to run through, correct? So that is what I'm trying to achieve here through this piece of logic. So do you think this is complete? Have we achieved everything or all the possible scenarios?
Draw case.
Okay, so we have what will happen if there is a draw, which means P1 has, say, rock and P2 also has rock, right? So in that case, this will result into a draw, right? And same way, I can have 3 more conditions where P1 has paper and P2 also has paper. That will also result in a draw. And P1 has scissors, and this also has scissors, and that will also result in a draw. So I can have 3 cases where the game will result in a draw. Here I have three cases where the game is resulting into a P2 victory, right? So Rohit asked a very appropriate question, which is every time P2 wins, can you explain why? Because we have listed down the choices that P2 has taken in each condition, right? So this is one game, right? If P1 chooses this, P2 chooses this, then P2 is the winner, right? This is another game, right? This is another game, right? So now we have kind of listed down all the scenarios where given every pair of choice, what would be the outcome, right? So that is basically what we're trying to do. So now we have handled draw case as well. Is there anything else that you guys think we should be doing? So hopefully this is clear why in all these three cases, P2 is the winner. Hopefully that is clear.
One question from my side. Should we first check for the draw or first check for the win? And why should we, go with the flow that you suggest?
Right now I'm not turning into code, right? So I'm just trying to think of what are the different conditions that I need to worry about, right? So that's a good question, but once we go to step 4, that is when we can answer that. Okay. And we'll look at different ways of going about it. So, okay. So hopefully you guys have kind of understood this, but my question to you guys is like, have we covered everything or just think about the game, right? Are we missing something else? Anyone? P2 wins. Then this is next match. Okay, next match. Basically, the game will go again to the top. Yeah. Okay. What about here? There is no case where P1 is winning at all, right? Like all these cases focus on draw. All these cases focus on P2. Seems like P1 never gets to win. Why?
Else.
So what is the cases that we ended up missing? And make P1 win. Make P1 great again. Okay, so essentially, if we just take these three conditions and reverse them, so we say P1 picks up P, P2 picks up R, then naturally P1 will win, right? So P1 picks up paper, P2 picks up rock. So now who will be the winner? P1. And if you compare this condition and the very first condition here, they're reverse. The choice is reverse, right? So if we reverse the choices in this first three sets and similarly wrote the other three statements, then in all those three cases, P1 will win, right? So essentially we have total 9 combinations, 3 P1 wins, 3 P2 wins, 3 result in a draw. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense, right? And then, we get the final result. In this case, P1 is the winner. In this case, P2 is the winner. In this case, no one is the winner. Okay. So hopefully, so that's how you go about breaking down the logic without having to worry about the code part. I didn't talk about anything C++ related, any if else condition, anything else, right? Like I didn't talk about any of that stuff, right? And that is how you're supposed to approach any interview problem, any practice problem, any problem that gets presented to you. Okay. The moment you start thinking in terms of code first, you narrow your ability to think. Okay. So you need to practice the ability to never think in terms of code. The moment you start thinking about in terms of code, you'll think about, oh, why blah, blah, blah happens, or how do I see it out onto the screen, etc. Right? So do not jump into this. That's the major aspect. Okay. So here, this, if you just take a screenshot of this, right, it has no component of coding whatsoever. It all just talks about what is the choice P1 made, what is the choice P2 made, yep, and what is the logic that we are thinking about in terms of what is this comparison thing doing, right? It's comparing between P1 and P2, things like that, right? Cool. So, okay, so this is basically step 3. So if you have already, started from here, right, understood the problem, understood the logic, break it down into an algorithm through this sort of steps, right? Trust me, 90% of the time your interviewer has already decided to give you a thumbs up. Okay. After this, even if you fuck up, right, most of the time you're still okay, right? Because learning coding and learning a language is less than 10% of the job. Thinking logic, thinking algorithm, that is 90% of the job. Okay. Code any idiot can write, trust me, right? This is where the hard part is. So this is what you need to practice and this is what you need to learn, right? So don't bust your ass off trying to learn 20 different languages. Just focus on how I can make this better. Okay. And this only comes with practice. So all you have to do is do these kind of exercises more and more. And then if you're able to write clean code, a complete code on top, that's even better, right? So, if you stumble and fail in the next part, which is turning this into code, the interviewer will want to help you because they know that you are on the right track. You can think, you can come up with a solution. If you've written all this on a piece of paper and or shown them on a whiteboard in a Zoom interview or anything, you're already through to the next round, whatever the next round is, right? Unless you do a monumental fuck up in the next stage anywhere, right? So this is where majority of the engineers think that they need to jump into this and write this, but actually it's this, right? This a little bit of errors is okay, right? Like nobody expects you to write 100% perfect code unless the problem statement says that this needs to be 100% perfect. Then of course they're telling you exactly. Okay, so rock win by. Wait, where did I say rock win by? Between paper and rock. So between paper and rock, I said P2 wins. And between P1, paper and rock, P1 wins. So I'm not sure, Rohit, which scenario you're talking about. Okay, paper, rock, paper. Okay, cool. So I don't see any other questions. But yeah, so that's mainly about the logic. So Shivam, you want to take over from the code part on Ripple?
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
All right.
Just give me a sec to share my screen. Okay. So I think we left here, right? Here, I think. Okay. So now we have the logic. Okay. So first of all, what do we need? If we think we need choices, right? So for choices, we will definitely gonna need variables. So I'll create a variable char player choice. Okay. Player choice. So one variable, then character computer choice. I'll call it CPU choice. CPU choice. So if you notice, I am writing camel case, right? So first is the small one, and the second one is the big one. Okay. So that is how we write. This is called camel case. Like I am telling it vaguely, but essentially when we name variables, this is how we write it. So now we have two variables to keep our choice. So how do we get our choice from the keyboard? So I didn't teach you something. So it's a good chance to teach you. So this is how, developers learn. Now we need to take the input. So there is a function called cin, which is used. So what we want to, take from the keyboard, which is player choice. Okay. So now I'll just see out a line that is player choice to see if it's actually working or not, right? So whenever you are coding, make sure you are always testing like every 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Like, so let's see. So now I need to enter something. Okay. So I enter R. Just imagine I enter R, it prints R. So I can make it a bit better by just writing here enter player choice. Okay. So that we know we have to, enter player choice. And what do we need? R, P, or S, right, guys? So again, I'll done it once again. R means rock, P means paper, S means scissor. So I write R. So it looks kind of, thick. So what I need to do is, I'll just, use the backslash n to make it look beautiful. Then now again, I can again, input thing. So now it's printing player choice. Now I know it's working, okay? So that is what you do. Again, again take input for the CPU choice, okay? We are testing it, so I'm just taking the input for CPU choice. Otherwise, we could have a random number set from 0 to 3 and convert it into this RP or S. I'll show it to you later, but for now we'll just stick with the input.
I think one thing that we introduced new in this was that we started using this cin, right? I think in our sample logic before, we weren't talking about anything cin. So for anybody who's not familiar with it, it's just a way for us to accept input from the console, right? So far we saw cout, cin kind of like a matching, think of it like a matching statement that you can write whenever you want to ask the user to enter some input, right? So that's your way to ask user to enter input into your program.
So essentially, cout is output on console. Cin is taking input from the console line from the actually the user. So essentially, if we see this line cin player choice, so I am taking the input where I am taking it, like where I am storing it. So this is the variable player choice where it's storing the input. The player is giving. So now we are done with this. We have the two inputs. Now what I need to do? First, I think I'll check for the drop. So if my player choice equal to, so if I write equal to, it's assignment operator, okay? There is a difference between that. So if I write player choice equal to say S, so now it would, assign player choice, overwrite whatever I am taking input, because first I am taking cin input, player choice, and then, assigning it S. So it will overwrite player choice, and now it will always have S. So essentially 1 equal to means we are, putting value into something. If we are checking value, okay, if we need to check a value, we'll do a double equal to, okay, which is equal to CPU choice, okay. So now I just give it its own parenthesis, like so. If then I write the condition, okay, then I have a code block, okay. If I enter, so you can see there is a space, right? You can see this is a space, okay. This is a space, okay. Essentially this is a space. These are both different lengths, so this is indentation, okay, to make your code look sweeter. So okay, this thing is contained in if or else. So essentially this is one more thing it's good to know. So here I will print it as cout drop. Now let's test it out, see if it's working or not, guys, okay. So I get R, I get S, okay. So it's not equal, so it's not going into this, okay. So again, I just R and R, yo, draw. So one part of the game is over. Now we know we have, worked on the draw. So it might be that, there isn't any draw. So we can write another if statement, okay. So essentially there is one more thing we are missing. Just, okay, give me a sec. So this is actually known as commenting. When I write, double slash, so it's actually commenting. Okay.
Commenting basically is like when you will you want to leave a message in the code, or you want to remove a piece of code, and you don't want your program to actually include that code when you run it, right? So if you can see, anything that you comment out will be grayed out, right? So it's kind of like disabled pieces of code or English statements that you want to write as a message or documentation, right, that you might be aware of. So typically that's how you would go about adding comments inside your code.
If you see, I added a variables comment. Then here we take input. So I write we are taking input. Okay. So now here we start check if draw. So essentially, if some other person other than reading this code, it will help him. Like, okay, it's from the here to here, it's
Hmm.
input. Then from here to here, it's draw. Essentially, okay. So there is one more problem. If you look carefully, I have written RPS, but there are some really interesting people who want adhere to rules. They'll write Q and again Q, and it's a DOM. So we don't want it. Okay. So essentially, we have to check if they are again, entering R, P, and S. Okay, so this one case you will be doing once I teach you everything. Once you are done with the code, this one case you will be, looking it through as a challenge. Okay,
Hmm.
good. So we are essentially done with the first thing, draw. Now, so now we know like what all are the winning conditions for player one. Okay, so if player choice equal to say give me a sec equal to r sorry equal to r. So if we have rock, right, we want the player to win. Okay, player to win. So what would be the winning condition associated with that? Rock wins over scissor, right? So I'll just write and. So what is and I'll just explain you. Give me a second. CPU choice equal to again S. Okay. So I just write this simple statement. I'll test it out and then we'll move on forward. So what I'll print it is cout player wins. Alright. For now player wins. Okay. Let's test it out. Now we know there can be a draw, a rock and scissor. So player wins. Okay. Now it's going in this, right? It checked if player choice equal to CPU choice. It wasn't equal, so it is a false. That is why it didn't go into this 16th line. Now, if it didn't go into the 16th, it goes to the 18th, right? Like from 17th, then 18th. So from 18th, it checked basically what I wrote. So now what and means? And means this one should be true and this one should be true. If both of these are true, then whole of the if is true and it would go to the line 20, right? So essentially this whole statement like player choice should be R and CPU choice should be S, then only it will go in and execute this.
Hmm.
If say player choice is R but CPU choice is again say P, okay, is P, then it wouldn't go inside this because both these aren't true. Okay, so that's essentially it. So I have written one case. I need to write another one. Okay, so this is actually or. So we have used and means both of the condition of left and right should be true for it to run, for if to run and go inside. So what or means I'll show you with the code. It's better to show you with the code. So we have done for the raw, now paper. Okay. So for the paper, what is the winning case? What is the choice for the CPU? Rock, paper, scissors. So it should be rock, right?
Hmm.
Cool. So I'll just, okay, we can't save it. So I have a habit of, control S again and again. So essentially it's giving me an error, right? So I think so we would, need to move it inside parentheses.
Hmm. So yeah, so for those who might be facing any issues, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. So tomorrow we'll upload the recording.
I think I fucked up something. Give me a sec. So
I think the
a
code is
developer's job is to fuck up many things,
hmm.
but eventually figure it out. Okay, cool. So if you see, this is, this here the block starts and here it ends.
Yeah.
So this is the part I fucked up. So essentially, I think I need to, delete this one. So here the bracket starts and here it ends. So the second bracket starts here, it ends here, and the if bracket starts here and ends here. Okay. So make sure you always have these brackets in pairs. It's like shoes. It won't work if you won't have the another one. Okay. So let me stop it. Rerun it. I think it would be working. Yeah, it's working, right? So if I put R, so now what I have done is I have R. If I put in S, okay, it would print player wins because from 18th line it would go in. If I put R again, it would be stopped at the like 16th line. It would run the 16th line, won't go inside 18th because logically it's not possible because if both of them are same, it doesn't need to So just I click it and it's a draw. So again, just imagine I have a P, okay, and now I have a R. So it prints player wins. So this is an OR condition. So now I know this first one isn't true, guys, right? It isn't true. Player choice isn't R and it isn't S. So it's false. It will give false. But there is an or which says like if it is night or you are sleepy, you will sleep, right? So this is an or, right? The second thing is if it's night and your parents are scolding you, you'll 100%. So and or have this difference, right? So essentially that is why it's because second one is true. So second one is true. So it is printing player wins.
Shivam, can you just broaden out the window so that we can see the code? Right now, it's getting broken down into multiple.
Is it better?
But better, yeah.
Cool. So essentially, let's move on to the next one, right? So there is the
all we are trying to basically do is just kind of put all the conditions where the player wins inside one if condition itself, right? And we are saying that there are, if you remember the whiteboard logic that we were discussing, we are talking about combinations, right? Like what combination, and we put all those three conditions together where player two was winning, all the three conditions together where player one was winning. So, sorry. So all we are doing is we are trying to put all the logic together in one place where the player wins message is kind of like is a common theme, right? Where whatever the condition might be between player choice and CPU choices, if one of those logic match, right? If one of those are true, then naturally player wins.
So essentially, if you see, I've coded like if player one choices are and CPU is S. So rock wins over scissor. Yes, player one win first thing. Second thing, if it's paper for player and if it's rock for the CPU. So again, paper wins, right? If it's scissor and it's if it's paper, so player one wins. So we have the player one winning condition, right? So I could, do again an if and write whole of the code, same of the code here again inside this if, copy this and paste here, right? And just make it opposite. But if player one wins in these conditions, so it means if these are the only three conditions in which player one wins, right? So essentially it means in every other case, player two wins, right? We don't need to check. You can check if you want to, but it's better, going into an else and see how CPU CPU wins. Okay. So I just do this and run it. So let's see. So we have, if we want the CPU to win, now we know player one win, it's working. We want the CPU to win. So what would be the choices? So rock, paper wins over rock, right? I choose paper. Yo, CPU wins. So essentially that's majorly it, right? There's one more thing, you'll say, okay, if two players are playing and if someone put rock first, then second one knows he has put rock. I'll always put paper. Oh, sorry, paper. Okay, so always CPU wins. So what you can do is do a little thing here. Percentage. Again.
Oh, you want to randomize the input?
Yes.
Okay, so then we can get rid of cin altogether. Huh? We can just directly do it with the
Oh, got it.
CPU choice. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a classic example of laziness because it shows me the variable, so I didn't want it to write. So majorly that is one reason people use IDEs, integrated development environment, which essentially shows you like all the variables you have created and many more things autocomplete majorly.
Hmm.
So now what does it do? It picks up any random number. Say it picks up 20. Okay, so what is this percentage? Percentage is actually for remainder. Okay, so percentage 3. So just imagine if it picks 3, it would give a remainder of 0. If it picks 4, it gives the remainder of 1. And if it picks 5, it would give a remainder of 2. Again 6, 0. So it will always give me 0, 1 or 2. Okay. So now what I can do is I have CPU choice in here, right? So I can just write some more lines of code so that if CPU choice equal to 1, okay, because we are randomizing it. So if it's 1, I say CPU, give me a sec. Okay,
I think
okay.
we need something else.
Now here we have fucked up a bit. Why? Because it's a character, right? CPU choice. Again, it would take the ASCII values. So now this is the thing we came to learn. So majorly I'll use int because it will return this one would return integer value. Okay, int random selection. So I wrote random selection random. Then if I'll write if it's 1, right, because I'm adding 1, so now we have 1 2 and 3. Okay, not 0 1 2 3, not 0 1 2. I added 1, so it's 1 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Cool. So now okay, again CPU choice I have written here, right, but I have assigned it to random cell. So random cell, and then I'll write CPU choice equal to. So I am not writing equal to. I am writing equal to. Okay. Say R. Okay.
Hmm.
One is R. Then again, if I could have written a function here, but it would be a bit out of scope for now. So I won't be writing it. So this is just a trailer to watch the full movie. Contact my out here. RP. And again, if.
Yeah. So all we are doing is, right, since we were creating it as a player versus CPU game, we are actually writing a little bit of logic to really create a random way to generate user input, right? So for player, we actually get the input from the command line or the console, but from CPU, we actually do a other approach, right? So maybe, Shivam, what we can do as a minor addition is when the CPU choice has been finalized, we actually see out it to the screen and say, okay, player choice, once the player choice has been entered, the CPU has chosen this as randomly, right? Like as the input. So we know that current game, what is the choice that the CPU made as well.
Okay. So I'm printing it above. Okay. Okay. Good. I'm printing that. Enter CPU choice. Give me a sec.
Then we
See,
have an unnecessary C out there.
give
In
me a sec.
line number 12. I think
Line
we can
number
get rid
2.
of that.
Okay,
Yep.
got it.
Why
So
we have
remember,
done rand. Okay. Okay. So somebody's asking regarding explanation to the rand modulo 3 plus 1 logic.
okay, so that's a really simple one. Majorly it's mathematical. So let's think what it's doing. So just imagine random gives you a number between say 1 to 10. Okay. So just imagine it give me any number 6. Okay. Then what will it do? 6 modulus 3. So majorly what modulus means is it will return me the remainder. Okay. So the question I think the question would be two. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I don't exactly remember that term. So the question I think would be two, but here it would return zero. Okay. So when I add one, it gives me one. Okay. So essentially, if you think really carefully, what would happen is if you pick any number, it would always give you 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, and 2 as the output of the remainder. So picking, just pick one. Okay. So three zeros are zero, then one is the remainder. Pick three, three ones are three, zero is the remainder. If I take two, three zeros are zero, two is the remainder again, because it is how the table of three works. Like 3 plus 3 is 6, right? So we write is that it has 3 into 2, right? Essentially.
Hmm.
So like that is how it works. If you have any problem like in it, you could again ask me.
Yeah. So essentially, we're just doing a division operation, and then whatever is the remainder, we take that. And from mathematical, you can think about remainder would always be between 0 and whatever the number you're dividing with, right? So this gives you a range of numbers between 0 and 2, and add 1 to it, it just gives you a choice of 1, 2, 3, right? So 1, 2, 3 is something more logical to think about that because we are dealing with three choices. There are a couple of questions. Don't we need to give a range for random selection? You
Uh,
can, and you can avoid it as well. Like both ways of doing that.
okay, cool. So there is one more thing, guys. So apart from this, we have seen the logic. So sorry, there is one thing I would like to bring to light. If I move this logic from here to here after this, if n else, would it be a great choice to do that? Yes or no? I just cut this and move it down here. Would it be good? Yes or no?
So Rishi says no.
Okay, it's a no. So majorly, why? Because it has to do this all like operations, like majorly this all comparisons, right? So if it's a draw, imagine first it does this all comparison
Hmm.
and then it comes to there. So that is one reason I kept it above, right? So I think I'm done here. I'll hand over the mic to Mayank.
Hmm. Cool. So I think there are a couple of questions. When we don't give a range, what's the default range it selects? Okay, so
Good
Shivam.
question. So essentially, I think I need to Google it. I don't remember.
Hmm.
Truth
I
be
think
told,
normally it takes basically the default range for integers, right? So if the return value is integer, you can assume that it will give you. So depending on the hardware of the machine itself, right? Like it will give you a default uh, any number between the viable integer range itself, right? Um, if would be better, there is else if would be better. There is problem in it is getting draw and CPU wins. So I think we need to use else if to avoid it. Okay, I think yeah. So this is a good catch. I was about to come to it before showing you close the screen share. The draw case that we just talked about, right? Moving it downwards. So it was like if and player choice, CPU choice are the same, else if then the three conditions, else CPU wins, right? So basically, we were missing one else scenario there, in which case it will show the draw as well as one of the two choices as well, right? So it will show the else wala condition. So actually, guys, if you go back to the top of the chat, where Shubham had shared the link now. So if you refresh that page, you'll actually see the entire code, right? So it's available on the same link. So you can keep that as a reference as well if you want to make any changes, etc. So you can press the clone button. You'll see the clone button at the top of the screen. You can change it and run the code if you want to, and make changes from that code itself that you were just seeing. Um, so I think that else problem that you can also test it out, what I think Mohan mentioned in the chat. Yeah. So you can actually run that and see that if you enter uh, P and P, or rather if you get a combination where both choices are the same, then it will first show you a draw, and then it will go to the default thing, because we had if, then again if, and then else, right? So it was supposed to be if, else if, then else, right? So it was like a continuation. Um, Shubham, can you please share the link once again in the chat?
Sure, sir.
How to show the user the choice selected by the CPU. So Vaishnavi, that's actually already in the code. So showing the user the choice that the CPU had selected, we in the very last stages we added that as one of the improvements, right? If you want to do this several times, I mean, if you want to again take value, can you? Okay. So Aditi, that's a good question. That if, imagine you want to play this game over and over again infinitely, right? So that will talk about the concept of loops, right? So if you are already familiar with loops, I would encourage you to apply a loop on the entire program and run it again, right? And maybe you can have something like a statement saying, game over, player one wins, or CPU wins, game over, press S to start the game again, or press E to exit, or something like that, right? So you can look up a basic logic for loop if you're not familiar with it, but you can put the entire thing and make it also user based driven, right? So if the user asks that, yes, I want to play more, right? So you keep running the play game again. Um, while one will work, but you'll never be able to kill the game, right? You have to force quit the entire application. You're not presenting the user the choice, basically. So that's the only difference. If you put an infinite loop, a loop that runs forever without any condition, right? Then you're not presenting the user the choice to stop the game at any point they want. So that's the only trade-off. Again, when I said, right, understand the problem, this comes down to understanding the problem. If the problem statement said that you want to implement a game that repeats based on user input every time, then you have to implement that, right? But if it says repeats infinitely, then a while one solution is the correct solution, right? So you need to understand what the problem statement says and then go about implementing, because both approaches will work, right? There's no doubt about it. But the only thing is, one will work only in a certain condition and the other one will work infinitely, right? I'm trying to implement the multiplayer implementation of the hangman. Is there a way by which we can take input from one player, but it is not visible to the other player? So this is a slightly more complex topic.
Can I handle this one,
Sure.
please?
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, you need to learn Node.js, then socket programming to go with this. So from one end, one PC player input something, and from other PC it inputs. Server knows, but player doesn't.
Yeah, but I think that would be a true implementation of a multiplayer game, right? But imagine you can implement something that is on your current machine. So one person enters the input, the other person does not, right? So a hacky way, right? Like if you and me are both playing together, if Shubham and I were playing together and we were all both playing on the same machine, right? Not separately, but we're playing on the same machine. So you can accept user input, but it will be visible to the screen, right? You can change and clear the screen, etc. You remove everything that's on the C out, things like that. You can do those things. It's just that it will still be temporarily visible to the other person, right? Unless you want to go with Shubham's approach, which is truly, if you want to make it multiplayer, then the idea is I'm playing on my phone and you're playing on your phone, right? Or my laptop, your laptop, and then it doesn't matter what is visible or not, right? Because there is a server somewhere that's actually giving and storing the input, etc. So that is way beyond the complexity, but that is something that actually we cover in our Outscales program when we do the multiplayer game, right? So for example, the multiplayer project that we focus on is a turn-based a turn-based game, where like a pocket tank. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the pocket tank game or not, but you have a terrain on which you have two tanks, and each tank gets a chance to shoot something on the other, and there is a server that's communicating between the two players and deciding who wins, who loses based on those kind of conditions, right? And that is where what Shubham mentioned, you have to implement a Node.js server, you have to learn JavaScript, you have to implement Unity, C Sharp, all that logic, right? And you have to learn a lot of these stacks, queues, data structures to order to implement things like matchmaking and stuff like that, right? So data structures is very deeply seated when it comes to building any kind of games, and it's actually way more complex than building a simple mobile application, right? So yeah, that's why I said like the answer to that question is way beyond the scope. But you can come to Discord and discuss there. Okay. Um, well, one will work. Okay, okay. Looks like I think I've covered everything. We can code if -1 is encountered, then exit 0 will be called. Sure, Rishi, you can do that. You can have like a while infinite loop and keep repeating till a -1 or something like that kind of is encountered, which is exactly what I said, right? In a better user experience world, you're giving the user a choice, right? Press S to play again, or press R to start again, restart the game, something like that, right? So it's usually better to do those kind of scenarios. Because it just gives you a lot more cleaner output, right? So this is again similar to one of the assignments that we do in our program, where you get to see a bunch of sort of player output, like you deal damage to a player, the health keeps going down, you can heal the player, things like that, right? So you just want to make sure that at the end of the day, whatever you're building, your code is running as a project or a program, it's consumed by the humans, right? So while doing -1 is fine, but it's not good user experience, right? At the end of the day, you're building programs to be consumed by humans, right? So if you might as well take a little bit extra effort to make it more pleasing as an experience to the user, right? So that's what separates good products from great ones, right? User experience matters. So think from that aspect as well. Cool, guys. Okay, awesome. So generally, we have a dedicated community of developers on Discord, and you can find the link from our website, and it should be on the left-hand side in those social media handles. There should be a one handle for Discord. Again, it's a free community. Everything is available openly, so you guys can just join there. There are a bunch of other developers, etc. as well. And like I mentioned regarding our game development program, so we are starting a new batch sometime soon as well. Actually, I think it's starting next week. So if any of you are interested, feel free to directly apply through our website as well. And C++, data structures, we heavily focus a lot of emphasis on these things, and majority of the current students are also on Discord, so you can go and talk to them as well, how their experiences, and we directly basically focus on getting students jobs in the gaming ecosystem, right? So that is where our passion is. Both like I've been in the gaming industry for 8+ years now, so I would like to see a lot more engineers, solid kick-ass engineers working in this industry with top companies and all, right? So that's the vision of what we started with, and it's much bigger than this. So Aditi is asking, what is the cost of the program? So Aditi, it's not a free program, obviously, because it's a 6 months program. Actually, almost takes 8 months to finish. So you can imagine that it's not a short program by any means. And the goal is to basically make developers job ready for companies, right? So we directly partner with companies and present candidates for interviewing with the right companies, right? So the program is fairly expensive, and that's why it is not for everybody as well. Only people who are you know, people are very passionate about games, right? So they want to build games, they want to learn and get into the gaming industry, right? So the cost of the program is 1.5 lakhs. And but the idea is that we always present this opportunity to students that they don't have to pay us, apart from the initial security deposit, they don't have to pay us anything for the program till they get a job, right? So it's our job to make sure. So we have this thing called income share agreement, which basically is, if we don't get you a job by the end of the program, you don't have to worry about paying us anything, right? So the whole goal of this kind of a program is to make sure that we are not just a college, right? Like, we don't say ki semester starts, pay the tuition fee and then fuck off, right? That is essentially what's happening today in the education system, especially in colleges and all. And students are struggling because they're not getting taught things that are industry relevant, right? So instead, what education companies are focusing on now is that, hey, we know, because we have industry experience, we work with companies every day, right? So we know what companies want in terms of candidates, in terms of skill set, how they're thinking about it, and what are the needs, right? So what we do is we directly build curriculums that industry needs. And we are so confident that if you do this the right way, that you will get a job, that we literally don't charge anything to the students upfront. uh, the entire 1.5 lakh course is available for you to do, and only pay us back once you get a job, and that to a percentage of your future salary. So you get a better salary, we get more earnings from it, right? So once you succeed, you're responsible for us succeeding as well, right? So it kind of puts our interest together. So that's usually how the program works. Again, if you apply, I do a dedicated orientation session, and all this discussion takes more than 1.5 hours. So, just apply for the program if you're interested. Join one of the orientation sessions that I usually hold almost every week, and we can talk more details about it. But it's a very innovative, interesting structure where it frees up the financial burden from the students and puts us on us, and it makes sure that we are working our asses off in order to make sure that our students are succeeding, right? Because if you guys don't end up with a job, then you don't get to the contract says that you don't pay us anything, right? So that kind of aligns everybody's incentive in the right way, right? So we both are working towards one goal, that is to get you the best kick-ass job possible, right? And that too in that industry that we're aiming for. So cool. Any other questions, guys? So you should do more such sessions. Absolutely. We try to do it fairly often, sometimes in form of AWS webinars we have done in the past. So we try to do a lot of these actually with our WhatsApp community, with our student community and whatnot, right? So yeah, cool guys. So I think let's wrap up for today. The link, Shum, do you have the Repel link? Or let me share it if it's the same.
I shared it already.
Okay. Okay, cool, awesome. So guys, yeah, the Repel link is also here, so you can see the final version of the code, play around with it, and I'll encourage you to follow those 4 steps that I mentioned, right? So that is something that we highly focus on when it comes to sort of problem solving, interview practice, etc. Right? Awesome, guys. Thanks for taking out the time. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel, and you can join the Discord community if you're interested. And I'll see you guys around. Right? Thanks, Shivam.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Take care, guys. Good night.
Good night, guys.